So one of the highlights of the conference is always the student session. They bring in energy, they bring youth dynamicism and everything which old farts like me don't have. And I'm thrilled to bits to have two of the students who presented. We had a couple of sessions this morning. We had a student presentation session, then we paused for a bit, and then we had some questions and answers. And I'm delighted I've got Christina and Katelyn, and you both gave presentations. Awesome this morning, by the way. I was there and loved it. I wonder whether just in a minute you could summarise what message you were trying to get across. And perhaps, Christina, I'll start with you.
So basically I had a look at, I'm from the University of Auckland, so I was focusing on Grassroots, our rural health club, and also Pukaukaua, our rural regional program for 5th years. So basically my aim was just to, let the GPs at the conference know that we actually have so many students applying for these placements that we actually need more placements to get more exposure, because there's so many applying that want to do rural exposure and they're just not getting it. And just how awesome the Northland experience is. If we can expand that everywhere, it'd be great.
Good on you, that's lovely. And what about yourself, Kate?
Yeah, so I talked from a Otago University perspective, a little bit about Matagari, the Dunedin Rural Health Club, which I had a lot to do with last year. Country Scrubs, the Christchurch one, and the Boot in Wellington, who are both becoming a bit more reinvigorated this year with new leadership and more events, and just again letting everyone know what the events are and what we might need help with and what we can do for the GP network. And very briefly I talked about the rural immersion program that's run in Otago.
Good for you, thank you for that. Actually, I didn't prime you, I was going to ask you this question, but it is relevant. I think we did discuss it at a conference a year or two ago. The problem with funding. The paradox is that you're the next generation. Without you, we just get old and die and there's no rural workforce. But your funding is incredibly limited, I think, is it not? How are you funded? Are you funded well enough?
As a student club?
As a student club.
Auckland has fantastic funding. The faculty is very supportive of us, and we also have a lot of organisations that are great.
That's
but
fantastic.
I think the Otago
You're the Cinderella one of them.
Yeah, Otago, particularly Matagari and Dunedin last year, we worked really hard to get some funding, and actually the Department of General Practice and Rural Medicine did give us some really good funding, and it's going to continue on a yearly basis, which is incredible.
Well, it sounds like Auckland should fund you really badly.
Yeah. I think we got a bit jealous last year.
There's a solution. No, that's great. That's why we like to find solutions with those at the conference. That's lovely.
Yeah. I think
do you struggle? I mean, is it genuine? All seriousness.
We were really struggling before we got this set. I think now it's okay, but each year we've kind of got to work out what we need funding for and maybe apply for some. Like even funding for me to come up here was quite difficult, and I ended up actually applying to the New Zealand Medical Association Leadership Fund. So there is still funding issues, I believe. Yeah.
It's amazing, and you're a full-time student as well as doing all this sort of CEO work. It just never ceases to amaze us. It's wonderful. And then we had a break, and we had the Q&A session. Now then, by and large, it was for you, but I think we all got a lot out of it. So what did you guys get out of the Q&A session? Perhaps Christina, I can start with you.
So from a student's perspective, it was quite interesting seeing the different opinions from different year levels within the students, and also the opinions of the GPs, and that we had quite differing views of what a GP is like. Obviously the GPs are already in that situation, and then you've got these students who we're here because we are thinking about doing GP, but it's actually the negative views that we hear from our peers that don't want to do GP and wanted to go into these specialties, that we actually need to be talking to them more. So I found that it was really important that we discuss it, but it's also there's a lot more work to be done.
Right. So what we were discussing was, why is there a negative perception of general practice? That sort of statement. Are you going to be a specialist or just a GP? And that's what we're talking about. So as you rightly say, to a certain degree, we're preaching to the converted, really, aren't we, with you lot? So between the both of you, what is a theme which the college needs to hear?
I think they need to hear that there needs to be some change from all levels. I mean, students get this every day, like, the whole question, are you going to be just a GP? So that's a community change, but that's not realistically going to change anytime soon. But even from our own peers or from the other consultants when we're in the hospital, like, GP, that's sort of the fallback, or GP, it's not the exams aren't as hard, or I had to do this to become a specialist, you only have to do this to become a GP. So I think maybe even it is making the program more renowned, more in some ways difficult, I guess, to get into, so that people fight for it. I mean, we do want to encourage people to get in, of course, and get into the practice, but so that it's more valued.
Yeah, good point. And mind you, we've got the concept of the rural workforce per se, including the rural hospital doctors. Has that got a similar status to being just a GP, or is that seen differently through your eyes?
I honestly don't think it's very well advertised. As student health clubs, we are trying to advertise it. There is nothing coming from the big guys in the universities that are letting students know that there is a rural hospital medicine specialty.
Right.
We only know because we come to things like this, and then we pass the message on.
That is
so
impressive.
It needs, yeah, it
So
needs some work.
that's a message for us, isn't it? To sort of take out a take-home message which we can give to our membership. Really, is that one. So have you enjoyed the conference?
Oh, it's been great.
Yeah,
That's
always
what we
great.
need. That's
Yeah.
what we need to hear. Well, look, I really appreciate you coming. As I said before, the energy you give to us is just infectious, and I really appreciate everything you did. And thank you for spending the time here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.